started this thing between the two institutions. It was the only, absolutely the only project, joint project between the University of Miami and FIU. We were first. I will not go into details as to why, but you may guess. So we broke the ice, and right now, as you know very well, if not, I'll share that with you. That model of cooperation was copied by the Latin American Study Centers of both institutions. They joined the efforts, and they got the attention of the agency in Washington, and they are the Title VI anyway. They didn't give us royalties, but I keep claiming that, just in case, some. At that time, we shared this with you as an introduction, since we have only two speakers. Anyway, at that time, the formula we adopted was the formula of the European Union, the formation of the European Community of Coal and Steel. We had the steel, they had the coal, or vice versa. And then the professor here that we started the whole thing, we came up with a solution that we would better have 50% each of a successful operation than 100% of failure. And just share with you once more, I never regretted that decision anyway. And here we are. Thank you. Then I've been in charge, of coordinating, a panel composed of representatives of the diplomatic corps, and as you know, because of circumstances, we have two people that for representatives of European governments. For distinct reasons, I know them. I would say very well because of different reasons. The first, or the second, is the case of Mario Buisan, who is the trade commissioner of the Spanish embassy here in Miami, the commercial attaché, so to speak. And I know that the titles. He would not share this in public, but he belongs to one of the highest paid agencies of the Spanish government. That's the reason why in all those plans, I've been studying the evolution of the Spanish Foreign Service, and every, 6 times in memorial, they are projects about merging the commercial branch, with the diplomatic service, and they refuse. I know he's going to say this is not the story anyway. Of course, that's the story. That's the story from the diplomats among them, because they are much better paid anyway.
The real reason is that diplomats don't want us to be ambassadors. That's why they don't want the mercs. That's the real underlying reason to wrote the story.
You see, I knew that it was going to be edited anyway. But among the part of his biography is that not everything is that positive, because Mr. Buisan, was Deputy Director General of International Affairs at the Banco de España, that you know very well, is one of the bad guys, today in the economic crisis. So I don't know, they started collapsing or having problems because of the experience of people like Mario anyway. I do this, just not to wait to do it jointly, and I would like, to share with you my absolutely highest satisfaction of sharing the table with Sophie Delport, head of the Public Affairs Department, the Consulate General of La République Française here in Miami. And I would like, besides reading the details, to say once more my extreme gratitude for one of the highest honors I had in my mother's professional life. She gave me an absolutely VIP visit to La Salle de l'Horloge, where the European Union was born. And we have a photograph, an exactly in the same spot, where, Mr. Schumann with Jean Monnet beside, surprised the whole world, doing something very French, sharing the resources, with the rest of the world. If you didn't have this opportunity, please do that. It's like going to the highest place of any of the known religions. It's like going to the Vatican, or for the Muslims, to go to America. You have to go at least once in your lifetime, to Busan, the Horloge. And I'm pretty sure
it's not generally open to public.
not now. Oh, then I was giving not a VIP tour, but a real VIP tour. And once more, I'll share this with you. The students, there are at least two former students of mine were taught here at Beverly Barrett, and they can tell you that when I start teaching my course on the European Union, the first program with slides and so on, it always includes Basal de Horloge. Okay, and I guess as a result of this enthusiasm, I was then awarded, Jean Monnet chair. That without that couple, by the way, we would not be here. And we would not have any funding. Okay, so please, if you can do anything in order to support the European Union, so that those days, there are news that is going to be disbanded. I always answer back like Mark Twain, that the death of my death is prematurely announced. So don't believe that. Okay, without further introduction, I guess, should we do it in reverse? Mr. Buisan first? Okay, well, look, Sophie, we the Spaniards, we were here first.
Okay, good afternoon. Well, thank you, Joaquin, for your remarks. I was going to talk about innovation, but after Joaquin's remarks, I think I'm going to switch my topic and talk about political diplomats and economic diplomats and how we would alone, no? Okay, jokes aside, well, first of all, thank you very much for being here this afternoon. I know that Friday afternoon, to hear something about innovation and technology is not the best plan here in Miami. But anyway, so double thanks to all of you. And also thank you to FIU, and especially to Christine for inviting me and for putting together all this that I think is always very important, at least to be a couple of days, so then I have talking about these issues that usually we don't talk very often. Okay, I have prepared I hope this is a brief presentation about how innovation is in Spain, but I know that after the presentation we have a Q&A session, so then we can talk about innovation, we can talk about Spain's presence here in Florida, we can talk even about the current economic situation in Spain, so whatever you want, I will be delighted to trying to answer your questions. And we can talk about soccer as well, so I don't care, I like any kind of issue and stuff. Okay, yeah, so I'm going to, as I mentioned very briefly, perhaps some of the slides, I go quite quick, because then if you have any comment or anything, any question, we can go back and we can further talk about that. So a couple of data of Spain, also more data about how today innovation and technology, which been the evolution in the last years, and today what are the main data that we can point out. The new strategy for the next 7 years, and some goals and some practical questions that we have in Spain. What's innovation? According to Real Academia de la Lengua Española, is the action and effect of altering or changing something by incorporating new aspects of the process of creating or modifying a product and placing it on the market. So I think that's innovation for everything, and this is innovation for Spain and Latin America, because we share the same language and the same reales academias de la lengua. Okay, couple of data about Spain. Well, I mean that I'm sure all of you may know. Today is the fourth economy in the Eurozone, the fifth in the European Union, and the world's 13th largest economy. I think we are quite active in terms of foreign investment. So we are the 11th largest investor worldwide. Here in the US, we are the 10th largest investor with a great evolution or development in the last 6-7 years. We are the second largest in Latin America, since the 90s. And well, I think if there is something to emphasize on Spanish economy, I will talk about infrastructure. I think the development in the infrastructure area in Spain has been amazing in the last 10 years or 15 years. And also if we see the way back about foreign investment in Spain, so we are the 9th largest recipient of FDI worldwide, especially, I mean, the US is #1. There are, I mean, the most important American companies are already in Spain, and they were since even the 60s. And so is, as I mentioned, is the major investor in our country. Okay, we're trying to to finance and to put means in innovation. That has made that there are some areas, like for instance, renewable energy, water treatment, some rail and biotechnology, where we are in some ways we have companies that are leading the world in terms of business and in terms of innovation, and that's something that has been also, I mean, a factor or a development of the last, I would say, less than 10 years. And I think the current, well, not only the current administration, but the past administrations are very much aware that innovation and Spanish innovation is one of the major factors for future growth and for future development. For instance, here there are some data very briefly. So if you see here, the idea is to see the evolution in Spain in the last 10 years or in the last 12 years, or we're going to see after that the last 2 years that, I mean, due to the financial restrictions, this evolution hasn't been as great as we can see here. But then in terms of people working in the field of research and development, they have doubled in 7-8 years. Also, if you use the common criteria to try to measure, which is the scientific knowledge of a country in terms of articles of scientific production. So also there's been I would say a huge increase in this period of time, in just 5-6 years. And I think also which is even more important is the fact that private companies are very much aware of the importance of spending innovation. I think that we're going to see, I mean, a couple of graphs where we see that there's been a huge effort from the part of the public administration, not so much, I would say, from the part of private companies in Spain, but I mean, little by little and gradually, they've been aware of the importance of spending on this area. Here, just a general data about how much we spend in terms of GDP. So we see the evolution since the year 2000, and more or less the stabilization in the last couple of years. That, I mean, if we continue, so last year, 2012, were more or less the same as 2011. So we see there's been a huge, because here just a decimal point is a lot in terms of money. So we see that we have around 1.33% of our GDP. So that means that our GDP may be around 1.3 trillion in euros. So that means that we're spending around 15 to 20 thousand million in euros. Also here, as I mentioned earlier, so you see the first graph, or actually we can follow the second, but the first one, you see the distribution between public administration and which is companies and private companies. So the red line is public administration and the blue one is private companies. So you see that there's been this here. I think is where we can see the effort of the public administration in the last 8-9 years, and also that the private companies are, I would say, catching up in this effort. And well, last year, 2012, more or less, there is a half and half, no, 50-50 in terms of spending in R&D in Spain. Okay, we are also aware that, I think that important achievements have been made in the last decade, but despite of all of that, there are some challenges that I think that the Spanish Ministry of Industry and General Administration has to face. No? For instance, the current growth model is not as much as we would like based on industries of innovation. It's more based on industries of low innovation. So we should be able to change that. Also, the resources from the financial sector are not, I would like, well designed, and then sometimes there is a certain lack of resources, of financial resources for innovative practices, and also some coordination between the educational system and the companies and the needs that the companies have. And I think something that all throughout the world the countries are working on. And also, to try to make the public administration more flexible and to focus or to conduct or to channel the funds, even if they are decreasing to the proper and the most efficient areas of innovation or in spending. So with these challenges, there was launched last year the new strategy, which is called the new plan, trying to face these problems, how to continue with this effort of innovation. Then there are some general goals that you can see here in terms of human resources, financing, of course, trying also to help small companies, because we think that this is a very good way to grow if you invest in innovation. And in general, trying to maintain or to keep this dynamism in emerging technologies and trying to connect it with the expenses that we are making in Spanish research and development. This strategy and initiative is very much in line with the targets defined by the European Union. There is an European program called Horizon 2020, and so the effort or the idea or the plan has been to try to involve, to put together both initiatives. So in the way that the goals that we are pursuing with this new strategy are perfectly in line with the European Union goals and with the strategy and the initiatives that the European Union is undertaking. Some of the major of the key goals that we try to follow is, well, obviously to put Spain on the forefront of knowledge. We want to promote highly competitive business sectors, and also to coordinate the different regions in terms of science and technology systems that are in Spain. Going further, also to boost the international scope of technology. I think here we've seen, at least I've been working more on international issues, but what I see actually, we made a study before I come here to the Trade Commission of Miami. I was working for the Spanish Foreign Trade Agency, which is ICEX, And then what we saw, and actually we launched a couple of studies, seeing or trying to find out the relationship between innovation and internationalization. It was very interesting because we saw that the most innovative companies were the most internationalized companies. So if you invest if you put money in innovation and you are trying to be very active in innovation, one of the results and consequences of this effort is going to be to become more global, to become more international. So there is this link, as I mentioned, there are studies that show that, and so that's why even trying to put in place some international policies, if you put money on innovation, you're going also to reach that goal. No? It's something that perhaps it's a kind of an indirect way to reach the same goal, but it goes like that. And actually, we made a study because there are some sisters of IFEX in Europe. For instance, we studied the case of the UK, I don't know if the case of France or the case of some Scandinavian countries, that actually they have put together both agencies. So instead of having one agency for innovation and one agency for internationalization, they have merged both of them, and they have just one agency for both things. No, and it's something that we were studying, and I mean, we in Spain we haven't merged both, but we have put a very close coordination between both of them. Okay, so also to create a favorable climate for R&D and I investment is also very important. So the economic policy in general should should follow this kind of goal, of general goal, and also to put in place conditions to disseminate all the results and all these consequences that we are reaching. So also this new strategy or new plan has put on the table some quantitative goals. For instance, I mean, the idea is to try to increase annually by 6,000 million euros the financing of this area. Also, well, regional cooperation I already mentioned. Public demand, so to try to promote innovation through public demand. Human capital, so very important. And then here there is a very, I think I should mention a very close link with education. So it's very important to reform your education system in a sense that you make that there is this closer link between the education system and companies and firms. And also, as I mentioned, this internationalization is inherent to innovation. We think that that's also important, and as I mentioned, from the part I've been working more actively in terms of internationalization. We've been aware of this relationship, and we've been trying to be active also on this issue. And so there are some quantitative data, for instance, which percentage of GDP should be spent on R&D, and then so we saw that we are around 1.3334. So the idea is to reach the 2% in 2020. So obviously in the last years, because of the lack of public resources, there's been a certain stabilization in terms of expenses, but we hope that, I mean, in at least next year, especially from 2015, we are going to be able again to increase all the public financing on innovation. Also, as I mentioned, it's very important not only that there is this public financing, because that's, as you know, is more the European way, but we have here the Anglo-Saxon model, or at least the US model, where private financing is the basic point, although it's true that there is much more private financing is the usual way, although here there is much more public financing than what is thought and what is seen in the rest of the world. I think that here in the US everything is private financing, but that's not true. There is, I mean, it has a very large share, but there is also a very large share of public financing in terms of innovation for any kind of purposes. And then you can see here the ratio that there are the goals that want to be reached in this 7-year span of time that we are working with. Okay, muchas gracias. Thank you very much. And as I mentioned, I will be totally open for any kind of question that you want to make. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. The first thing I want to say is that I'm not an expert of innovation, so please be kind. So I'm going to try to give you an introduction of what's happening with innovation in France nowadays. Of course, my presentation won't be thorough, so don't hesitate to ask questions. So to begin, like in Spain, in France, there has been a huge effort that has been made in the past 5 to 10 years on innovation and research, because basically we thought that we were not doing as well as we should. So some measures have been taken, and 5 years ago there was a new strategy that was launched by the French government called La Stratégie Nationale de Recherche et d'Innovation, which basically means the National Strategy for Research and Innovation. Sorry. So now I'm going to go through the different aspects of the strategy, and I'll try during my speech to give you concrete examples of the French fields of innovation. So I don't have a fancy PowerPoint, so you just have to listen to me. So just a first figure that I can give you. The French support on R&D is now 2.26% of the GDP, which is a little higher than the European average, which is 1.92% of the GDP. So the first dream for the strategy, the first measures I'm going to talk about are the tax measures, of course, because you know when there is a problem, the core of the problem is always that money. France has been working for several years now to develop one of the most attractive R&D tax incentive programs. It's basically a large scope of tax breaks and tax credits that have been implemented. I won't go into details because talking about tax can be boring. I can answer questions later if you want. But basically those are measures designed to encourage private companies to spend more on innovation. So to give you a general idea of the amounts that are at stake in 2009, for example, about 5 billion euros were received by about 16,000 companies through those tax breaks. So it's a lot of money. And among those companies, 2,000 were foreign companies. So to give you a more concrete example, and I'm going to pass that. To give you a more concrete example, we have in France a measure that is unique in Europe, which is a tax credit for video game companies. Because you might not know it, but France is the second creator of video games in the world, second to the US. So it's a great source of employment in France. To give you again figures, there are about 300 very dynamic and innovative companies that work in video game in France, and it represents about 5,000 jobs. So yeah, I don't know if there are video game users here, but we have actually very, very famous ones that are French. The most famous might be Call of Duty, so I don't know if you have students here using that. Okay, so the second aspect of the strategy would be the strengthening of public and private research partnerships. So in 2004-2005, the French government has created a new kind of structure that is called the Pôle de compétitivité, which can be translated by innovations clusters, exactly. So they were created to stimulate the public and private research partnerships. So these structures, they enable public sector R&D centers and educational institutions to work with private companies to join forces basically and work together on collaborative innovation projects. So since it has been created, the French government has helped establish and found 71 innovation clusters. 6 of them are dedicated to green technology, for example. And at the end of 2011, more than 6,000 companies belong to innovation clusters. About 600 of them are foreign companies. Another aspect would be the intellectual property and the patents. So in March 2010, a 100 million euro state investment fund has been created. It's called France Brevet, which basically means France Patents. It targets mainly small and middle-sized companies to help them establish a wide portfolio of intellectual property rights and to market the resulting inventions. So we are actually not so bad at patents. To give you again figures, in 2011, we had about almost 8,000 international patents application, and which make France the second rank in Europe and the 4th in the world for the submitted patents. So, to talk a little more generally about the strategic areas and the state funding areas of innovation, there is a program that has been launched in 2010 called the National Investment Program. It is basically a state-funded budget of 35 billion euros, which is a lot of money, and it is dedicated to enhance the competitiveness of the French economy in 5 designated strategic areas. The first one being higher education and training, the second research, the third small and middle-sized companies and industrial sector, and the fourth sustainable development, and the fifth digital economy. So through this national investment program, a total of 933 projects have been selected, and they involve more than 2,000 companies. So to talk a little more about the kind of areas we are working on to boost innovation and encourage investment in green technology and green companies, the French government has organized in 2007 a huge national round of talks about environmental matters, which was called the Grenelle de l'Environnement. It has set targets for developing green buildings, renewable energy, clean technology and sustainable transportation. Sorry. And we are really working to reach those goals. To give you an example, by 2020, which is like tomorrow, almost a quarter of the energy consumption in France will be met by renewable energy. So it's quite a good progress, as in 2009 it was only 10%, for example. And of course we give tax credits for the clean companies working on environmental projects. There is also another kind of projects we are working on, the state is working on right now, which is the Greater Paris Project, which is basically a project made to keep Paris, which is actually one of the most innovative cities in the world, according to some analysis. French, maybe. So it is dedicated to keep Paris an innovative and dynamic city. To give you just 2 examples of this plan, There is a funding of more than 30 billion euros that will be dedicated to improve the public transportation in Paris, something that Miami could do. Sorry, I don't have a car, so it's a touchy subject for me. And the second thing is a 2 billion euros that will be dedicated to the Saclay Plateau, which is a region in the south of Paris, and it will be to build the largest science and technology campus in Europe. So talking about campuses, it's a priority. Obviously, it's common sense to dedicate a huge effort on higher education and research, because if not, the effort made on education, on innovation, won't be able to go on in the long run. So, well, the first thing I wanted to say is that France offers well-renowned universities where the selection is made for the excellence in research, and in particular for science and mathematics. I won't go into detail and talk about the Nobel Prizes and that kind of things, but to come back to what has been done to try to make them more efficient in terms of research and innovation. More possibilities have been offered to the French universities recently. Now they can enter into partnerships with companies, they can access funding through university foundation, and they can set up commercial subsidiaries to manage patent portfolios. And more recently, 23 research and higher education hubs have been created. Basically, these hubs, they enable the universities, the grandes écoles. I don't know if you all know the difference between universities and grandes écoles in France, but I can come back to that later. So universities, grandes écoles, and research bodies to share resources, basically, and launch initiatives together. So my last point, one of my last points about university, will be that we encourage the mobility of students, again to encourage the exchange of knowledge. So we are one of the first host and source country for the Erasmus program in Europe. And in 2011, to give you an idea, in France there was almost 300,000 foreign students studying in French universities. My last point is about more specifically research. The number of researchers in France is 8.3 researchers for 1,000 employees in France, which is one of the highest in Europe. For example, in Germany it's 7.9. I don't know if everybody has a look at the papers that I gave, but that you'll see that we have a huge focus on, for example, medical research or robotic research and that kind of things. I won't go into details again. So I hope I gave you a good general idea of what's happening in my country right now. And to conclude, I would like to show you a small, short video that will summarize what I just said.
Hello there. Did you know that you're about to learn about France in 3 minutes? 32 French firms are in the Fortune Global 500, which is a pretty decent club, by the way. Hello there. Did you know that you're about to learn about France in 3 minutes? 32 French firms are in the Fortune Global 500, which is a pretty decent club, by the way. Our sincere congratulations to Germany, who has tied with us, and to the UK, which is not that far behind. And did you know that all polar bears are left-handed? We don't have many polar bears in France, but we do have the second best quality of life in Europe. The French government invests a lot in R&D. At first people thought it was for R&B, and they didn't get it. Well, the fact that France is increasing tax research credit for SMEs is music to the ears. France quite simply offers the most attractive R&D tax credits in Europe. It's only logical for the country of haute couture to propose a tailor-made tax system for investors, isn't it? That's because we like to discover awesome new things and because we love innovation. Did you know that 80% of French people are happy to get up and go to work in the morning? Seriously, 80%! Well, maybe not so early in the morning. Oh, and yes, we don't want to sound arrogant, not our style, never will be, but French employees are ranked 4th in the European Union for hourly productivity. Did you know that we're one of Europe's leading destinations for foreign direct investment with 698 investment projects in 2011 and 20,000 foreign companies that already call France home? Apparently they like it here. Did you know that we have 137 different words to say love? No, just kidding, we've only one. But we do have 71 different innovation clusters at the heart of a region serving 500 million consumers. And that is true. Have we managed to clear your mind of the image of a black and white country where people smoke a lot, wear stripes, and shower rarely? No? Not yet? Let's carry on then. Frenchmen are fast. Paris-Frankfurt, 1 hour 10 minutes. Paris-London, 1 hour 10 minutes. Paris-New York, 8 hours. Paris-Texas, it's a movie. Paris-Rome, coming soon. 2 foreign companies invest in France every day. Actually, that's not always true. Sometimes there are 3 on Monday, none on Tuesday, and 1 on Wednesday. It's not fair to play with our nails like that. We've lots of forests too, if you're into forests. 43% of us are university graduates, and 43% of our PhD students are legal aliens. And we've won 11 Fields medals since 1936, 1 every 7 years. And every minute, 151 new tourists fly in to visit. And every day, 370,000 people take the train. And every week, something happens too. And did you know that when you add up all the numbers in this video, they create a prime number? Well, now you know. Say oui to France. Say oui to innovation. Thanks for listening. Oh, and here's a picture of an accordion.
I was ready to use the yellow card when it went over time, but then I resisted because of the video anyway. So we have about 7 minutes time for questions, comments, and protests. Mr. Shaw.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask the representative from Spain about the importance of Spanish innovation and Spanish investment in Latin America, because clearly with the problems of the euro, that whole particular market is clearly of great importance. And secondly, to ask the degree to which you are now exporting people back to Latin America looking for work.
Latin America has been the first, or was the first destination of Spanish investment in the beginning in the 90s. No? So there were the Spanish multinationals like Telefónica, Repsol, the banks of both Santander and BBVA, that they were investing there. And so that was, let's say, around 20 years ago, more or less. And then in the current century, so in the 21st century, there were, these big companies, they attracted as well medium, more than small companies, medium companies. No? So then that made that there were already a good number of Spanish companies doing business there. But then in the last, I would say this century, there's been another, this is the second wave of Spanish investment in Latin America. And then, okay, perhaps right now, you may call, I don't know, if we see, let's say in 3-4 years, we look back and we see this year, perhaps we may talk about the third wave of Spanish investment in Latin America. So right now, the good or the very positive economic situation in Latin America is helping a lot, and also is helping the bad economic situation in Europe. No? So that makes that there are a lot of Spanish companies going there, because for Spanish companies it's the natural destination in terms of investment and in terms of doing businesses, because of the language, of the cultural similarities, and that's the point. And actually, here in Miami, to to give you an idea, in Miami, in South Florida, so Miami-Dade County, we have around 40%, almost 40% of all Spanish companies in the US. And partially that is due to the fact that they are doing businesses from Miami, not for the US market, but for Latin America. So that's an indirect way to go there. So there are quite a lot of companies that are based here, and they are, all weeks traveling to Central America, to Mexico, but also to the Andean countries, to Colombia, Peru, and even to Argentina and Chile. That's the point. Also, as you mentioned, this new wave of investment has come together with more Spanish expatriates to Latin America. I think in Spain they have, because I don't share that view, they have that this is not, positive. No? So the fact that something that is brain drain, something like that, I don't share at all that opinion. I think that, even for a country, we have the example of France, we have the example of Germany, of the UK, even of Italy. So there are a lot of nationals of those countries working abroad. And that means very, very good. Not all of them are going back, but some of them are going back, and they are going back with this very good experience, and I'm sure trying to put in place in Spain what they have learned, what they've been doing in this country. No? So for me, that's not at all a drama that sometimes is presented in Spain, like, okay, these very, very much qualified people, they are high qualified people, they are going abroad. I don't think so. They are going to have experience. Some of them are going to stay there for good, but others will come back to Spain when the economic situation is better, and we're going to benefit from them.
There was one here, the next one I saw.
Hello, how are you? I have Spanish nationality, and I'm an international relations major, so I'm obviously really interested in diplomatic life and the representation of countries abroad. In this context of innovation, what is the future for the representations of Office of Commerce or a consulate? And do you think that goal is going to keep being important, or it's just going to dilute on the globalization, or it's going to be more important, or I don't know, what are your thoughts? Maybe both can answer.
I could make a difference between the diplomat and I'm kidding. No, but I think there's a difference between the political representation and the economic and commercial representation. I think I'm the head of the commercial representation, so talking about that, I think that the future is even more important for us, because, for instance, in the case of Spain, the path of internationalization for the Spanish economy is something that has begun not a long time ago, but just a very short time ago. So then, and this is going to continue, so the scope for more Spanish companies doing business abroad or exporting or investing, I think is huge. No? So that means that all the commercial trade commissions that are in the world, in the Spanish commission in the world, are going to have more importance and to have more work to do because of this path or this trend that I think is going to continue. Another thing is that what the political representation needs, and I think that the Spanish economy and the Spanish Foreign Affairs Ministry is doing pretty well. They have to adapt, so they have to become even more economic diplomats than just political diplomats. No? Because the 21st century, I think it doesn't make a lot of sense to have this, because you have you have internet, so you have a real-time connection every time. Another point here is the European Union. No? I think that what I see is that if there's going to come also a trend to put together all the European Union countries all around the world. So there are right now some countries where I think that it doesn't make sense that there is a French representation, a Spanish one, a British, Italian or German one, but perhaps they can be together under the European Union umbrella. I think this trend is going to continue in the near future. Actually, from the diplomat point of view, there's already a plan, and then I think that's going to come also for the economic and commercial representation.
Just very quickly.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, for the French side, I completely agree with everything what was said. for the French diplomacy, actually, the economic diplomacy is one of the priorities that have been designed by the new foreign minister in France. So there is like a general consciousness about the importance of it. The thing is, French diplomats were not used to being economic agents, all around the world. So it's something that has still to be designed. And also from the economic network, because there is the foreign ministry and there is the finance ministry, which has its own network around the world. There's something else that is happening right now, which is the crisis has divided budgets tremendously. So the number of representation from the finance ministry has been divided in 2 or 3, so around the world. At the same time, they are trying to create new agencies. So, for example, in France, we have an agency called Invest in France, whose job is to go abroad and find foreign companies to invest in France and that kind of things. So there is now a multiplicity of agents, and we all have to learn how to work together, and we all do it bad.
Very quickly, as an historian, I think we also have to ask questions about the way innovation has happened around the world. It tends to often come in clusters, like around the Industrial Revolution. And I mean, I know personally people who were involved in the computer revolution when it started here. There were, for instance, now you can get a PhD in computer science. You have all kinds of computer science experts. When it started in the United States, there was no one with a computer degree. There were no courses on computers. They were inventing something completely new. And so you have to understand that the kind of people willing to go into that, and my father was one of these people. My mother cried through months because he was leaving physics to go into this weird thing called computers, which nobody knew what it was, and everyone said, why is he out of his mind? He must be mad. And so you have to create an environment that allows people who are taking huge risks to go into fields that are already don't even have a label, let alone a degree or any courses. So that innovation really does also require safe spaces for people to transcend the vested interests that often regard this new thing as a threat. There's often many efforts to stop innovation as well as to make it foster. So I think we need a lot of case studies of how certain innovations happen in different national and cultural backgrounds. What worked, what didn't. Rather than just assuming that we already have a culture of innovation that we plug into. This was invented, the current shift started in the 40s. When it started in the 40s, there was no words even to define it.
Only one more. Sorry, I identify, I'll be really close. We are 4 minutes over.
It's okay, let's take 15, 2 or 3 more quickly, and
I'm very fast. Just to congratulate you. I love the video. This is great. Thank you very much, because we see in your 2 presentations that it is very important relations in Europe, in Spain, France, but all the European countries. You talk about Mr. Buisan about European companies, the Spanish companies in Florida. Would you mind telling us the kind of companies in Florida? We're talking about all the companies. The most important in innovation and telecommunication here, and the same for Sophie.
Yeah, there are, I mean, we have in our, according to our data, we know there are some that they are not there, but around 350 Spanish companies here in Florida. So, I mean, taking out, so just focusing on companies, so taking out any kind of businesses that perhaps are managed or are owned by Spaniards, no? So we try to eliminate that, and the result is around 350. And then I would say that there is, so the best term or word to describe this group of companies is diversification. So we have companies from all sectors, so industrial sector, telecommunications, IT, consumer goods, agribusiness, or anything. And then I'd say that most of our multinationals are here. No? So we have here Telefonica, we have here the two major banks. Well, there are 4 major banks: Santander, BBVA, Popular, with Totalbank, and Sabadell. We have infrastructure companies. I would say the 3 or 4 most important: ACS, OHL, FCC, and Saphir. And then we have also a group of middle-sized companies that, for instance, in the tile sector, just to mention one, we have Porcelanosa, and we have some others like Zuan. And then in the IT area, there are quite a lot. There are small companies, and they are, I think, most of them doing great. So it's very big variety, and again, it's a good example of the Spanish economy now, what we have here in Florida.
So for innovative companies, actually I think the most innovating companies, the French innovative companies, are not exactly present in Florida. They are Alcatel, for example, which is telecommunication, and Renault, which is a car company. But here in Florida, we have a lot of French small and middle-sized companies working on startups, working on websites, nanotechnology. We also have, for example, in the Tampa region, we have a company working on consumer goods and how do you call that? Syrups, like high quality syrups used for food and cocktails and that kind of things. It's in all kind of area actually. We have about 500 French companies in Florida, and they go from restoration to hotels to I don't know, Airbus, Michelin. Michelin is a very innovative company, but it's not in Florida. You can find tires from Michelin, but yeah, the CIGC, Georgia.
Maybe we'll cut it off so we can continue. There's some, yeah, I think if that's okay.
Since Ms. Barrett is going to speak for an hour later.
No, we have one last panel, so if you're willing to call it a day now, let's have a little bit of coffee and then come right back. And you can answer questions.